Hi everyone, this is Alexandra Lech and this video is going to be about Mercury. Thank you so much for watching the previous videos on Mars and Venus and what they symbolize in your chart when they are positioned in different signs. Today it'll be about Mercury. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your comments and all the messages. I am definitely going to add timestamps. It's my first time doing such long videos, you know, the Venus, Mercury and Mars symbolism through all the 12 signs. So I'm only learning, so I'm going to add timestamps in this video, but also I will go back to the previous ones and will add them there as well. So thank you very much for these ideas. Okay. I'm going to use a lot of different sources today. A lot of the knowledge is obviously in my head since I've been studying astrology for the last nearly 30 years. I also studied Faculty of Astrological Studies in London, but obviously there are plenty of books and sources that you can use yourself if you want to find out about all the symbolism and how to combine, you know, the positions of the planets and aspects and houses of the chart, but also the current transits. So astrology is a very multi-layered knowledge, and as they say, you study astrology throughout your life. It's not a 5 years course or a year course. This is something that you study through observation of world events, of your own life, people that you know, lives and events in their lives, you know, in your life, etc., and analyzing what each transit and each combination actually brings. But when we break down the positions of the planets in your chart, we can obviously focus on, for example, position of Mercury. So today I will discuss Mercury. First of all, what symbolism it brings in your chart, but also what it means in each of the 12 signs, okay? First of all, or second of all, I wanted to say that I will be going through a lot of different sources, so apologies if I read from time to time. It's just so much to say. I want to make sure that my knowledge is, the information that I give you is very much structured and in order. So I'll just go through every single sign and keep to my guidelines, not to go longer over 1 hour, but also, you know, just to keep some kind of structure and also do this timestamps, okay? So you will see where each sign description starts and ends, okay? So this is the introduction, and now let's move on to what Mercury actually symbolizes in your chart. I will put all the sources underneath in the description, so you can have a look, and I very highly, very strongly encourage you to dig a bit deeper if you're interested in astrology, if you want to know what symbolism each planet brings and how you can analyze your own personality, your character, and those of people around you, but also focusing on transits, on the current transits of the planets. You can see what transformations and what lessons we can actually go through in life. Okay, so Mercury. Mercury is quite a funny planet because it's very fast moving, and this planet is on the internal side of the orbit of the Earth, just like Venus, for example. For this reason, Mercury can never be further away than 28 degrees from the Sun, just like Venus can never be further away than 48 degrees from the Sun. So when we focus on Mercury, you know, both Mercury and Venus have their orbits nearer the Sun than the Earth. As I said, their positions in the zodiac are always in the signs near that of the Sun. So for example, you may have your Sun in Pisces, and your natal Mercury will never be in a different sign than Pisces, or the sign before, which is Aquarius, or the sign after, which obviously is Aries. So it's either of each side of the sun sign that Mercury can actually land, not further away. Okay, so we do have only certain amount of combinations, and I will also go through a few of them, not all of them obviously, because I will be talking for 5 hours, but just some combinations of how we can blend the meaning of the Sun in a certain sign and the corresponding position of Mercury, either before, after, or in the same sign of the Sun. So Mercury, let's focus on what Mercury actually symbolizes in our chart. It's a very interesting planet, also because it goes retrograde in transits in relation to the Earth. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year for approximately 3 weeks. Let's just first maybe focus on what Mercury brings. So it symbolizes the urge to make connections, to communicate. It symbolizes communication of all kinds and the dissemination of ideas and knowledge. How we express ourselves, how we communicate, how we make connections, but also how we soak in the knowledge, how we learn new things. Our thought process and opinions. It's about how our thoughts and opinions are being shaped, formed, how the mental energy flows through our brain. It symbolizes school and learning. Mercury is very much about primary school energy. It's the primary learning. So in the chart, when you see the placement of Mercury and how it is affected by other planets, how it is aspected, it will also tell you very much about how this person's experience in primary school will be. Okay, so it's primary school, the primary education. It's the rational mind, not intuitive. It's the rational mind. The trickster is symbolism of siblings very much as well. Trading, bartering, and commerce. Mercury rules 2 signs, Gemini and Virgo, which means that every time Mercury, approximately once a year, goes through the sign of Virgo or Gemini, this is where it feels at home. This is where it feels best. Is best expressed, the strongest, okay? It also symbolizes siblings, as I said. What I find interesting, you can have a look at position of Mercury in your chart. As I said, it will symbolize all these, things that I've just listed. So it will show us how we make connections, how we communicate, how we express ourselves. It will also bring some image, some picture of how the primary school education experience was for us. But if we have siblings, it will also very much depict what experience we have through having siblings. For example, somebody with Mercury, let's say opposing Mars, will give us an experience of fiery or very explosive relationships with the siblings, for example, right? Because it's opposing Mars. It's just one of many examples, but very much the position of Mercury will tell us all these things. But also when there are certain transits currently, let's say, happening to our Mercury, it may also symbolize what is happening to our siblings, what our siblings are experiencing at the moment, okay? For example, when you have Saturn transiting your Mercury, symbolizing siblings, and you have a brother or sister, Saturn may either solidify the relationship between you, or it may bring some kind of severity to it. But also it may symbolize, for example, that your siblings are going through some kind of solidifying, strong, Saturnian experience. For example, they get more recognition at work. So there are all these little layers, all these many layers of little significant expressions of what we can actually observe through astrology. Okay, so Mercury also symbolizes siblings, as I said, but also trading, bartering, any kind of commerce, but also transport. This is short distance travel, transport and travel. It is a bit vague. Vague. It's very individual, because to one person, short distance travel will be, going from home to shop. And for another person that travels around the world all the time, going through, I don't know, from, let's say, London to Rome will be a short distance travel, right? But this is the short distance, like idea of getting from A to B. Because Jupiter is responsible for long distance travel, okay? So, let me say a little bit more about astronomically what Mercury symbolizes as well. So astronomically, Mercury, as I said, is a relatively fast-moving planet and is never more than 28 degrees away from the Sun as viewed from the Earth. which means that it can only be seen for relatively short periods. In ancient times, therefore, it was characterized as evasive, elusive, and unreliable, and this idea has remained in our astrological interpretation of this planet. It is often referred to as the trickster, playing tricks, Peter Pan. Mercury also, in the personal birth chart, in your natal chart, Mercury holds the same function of messenger which his mythic counterpart fulfilled. Hence, he describes all processes to do with the gathering of data and information, hence learning, studying, gathering knowledge, its processing, and its communication to others. Mercury in a chart will tell us how a person picks up information through their perception of the world around them, what kind of information they might desire to know, and how they will go about communicating this knowledge to the outside world. Through speech, writing, or indeed any medium which allows for its transference. Mercury offers a linking or bridging function, showing how we communicate our message and make connections to the world around us. In this way, Mercury governs our facility for language and speech, and the perceptions or experiences which will either support or hinder the communication process as such. Words, symbols, signs of all kinds come under Mercury rulership as media by which information is conveyed, as do language translators and interpreters. Education also comes under the auspices of this planet, as I explained, particularly the primary or elementary stages of education, where the focus is on gaining the basic knowledge. The higher knowledge is represented by Jupiter. That's a very different planet, but Mercury is responsible for this primary elementary stages of education. Right. Mercury also rules all forms of short journey transportation, as I mentioned, so buses, trains, trams, cars, and so on, as well as roads and railways. It denotes movement and mobility, the idea of getting from A to B. Because it is concerned with communication, it also rules post offices, letters, parcels, couriers, media, mobile phones, etc. It also rules trade, bartering, buying and selling, merchandising, markets, shops, and all forms of dealing, agency, or exchange. There is also a very youthful element to Mercury. I did say it symbolizes siblings, but it's a very youthful planet. It's the trickster, the Peter Pan element. Okay, so it's shown by its association with children and young people very much in our chart. So yes, when Mercury is prominently placed in the chart, there's often this Peter Pan element to the personality, a youthfulness which reflects Mercury's image, in this way. But in the body, Mercury governs nervous system, arms, and the hands. In mundane astrology, Mercury is linked with young people, the education system, schools and teachers. It refers to the transport system and all aspects of trade and commerce. Okay, so I said it many times now, okay, what Mercury symbolizes. The key words for Mercury, because always when we do these like astrological interpretations of the chart, or the current transits, it's always remember to blend meanings. Okay, so we blend the meaning of Mercury. It's good to sometimes like repeat or read many times, talking about Mercury, to get the idea of what Mercury actually symbolizes, and then we blend this energy with symbolism of a certain sign or another planet if we look at astrological aspects in the natal chart, for example. So when we again think about Mercury, we have the keywords for Mercury will be communication, speech, language, writing, the mind, the trickster, youth, transport, connections, siblings, twins, networking, connecting. Positive expressions of Mercury will be quick thinking. When you, for example, have a strong Mercury in your chart, the positive expressions of Mercury symbolism will be quick thinking, versatile, communicative, bringing people or ideas together, rationalizing and keeping perspective, witty, intelligent, fun-loving, light-hearted, curious, and wanting to know. When we focus on the negative expressions of Mercury, we have superficial, impatient, scattered, non-committal. There are barriers to communication. When Mercury is, let's say, has some hard aspects, difficult aspects in the chart, it will symbolize difficulties regarding either siblings or primary education stage, or anything to do with communication, how we express ourselves, but also how we learn. So people with complicated aspects to Mercury will symbolize problems in these areas. However, with time, with age, with all the transits, planets transiting Mercury in many different combinations throughout our life, it will adjust these barriers and these problems, and there are always things that can be worked on. And for example, when somebody has Mercury, has a difficult aspect to Mercury from Saturn, let's say, it may indicate that the person had difficult experience in primary school, for example, or they had speech difficulties or learning difficulties, or some kind of barrier in expressing themselves, or problems with siblings as well, maybe many different things. Okay, but let's focus on, let's say, mental capabilities of primary school learning process. But then with age, with time, throughout all the transits happening to the Mercury, to the natal Mercury, this person with the hard aspect from Saturn to Mercury, when they get older, they may actually master and perfect certain skill of communication, and they may become very highly communicative or highly knowledgeable in a certain focused, narrow area of expertise. Okay, so these are things that will shift and change when you work on them throughout your life. But a difficult aspect to Mercury very often means that we start with some difficulties, but then throughout our lives we perfect certain skill, and things become better and easier, and we become more let's say knowledgeable or skilled, or just more expressive. Okay, so but negative expression of Mercury will also mean barriers to communication, restless, never settling, inconsistent, rationalizing only rather than feeling or allowing feelings as well. Okay, so this is the symbolism of Mercury as such. I am going to go through the signs as always, so that you can get the idea of what Mercury in each sign means. And if you, for example, go to any astrological website that offers free charts, you for example astro.com, that I have been a fan of for over 20 years, you can input your birth data, which is very much your place of birth. So geographically it is important when you were born, your day, month and year of birth, and also your time of birth, which is very important to determine the rising sign, the ascendant, but also position of the planets in houses. Okay, so when you input all these data, you will have the generated chart. You can have a look at your chart. This is something that will always describe you. You always have only one chart for your date of birth. Okay, there's no other combination. When you know your time of birth, hopefully as precise as possible, you will just have this generated chart, and you can look at all the placements of the planets, and you can actually start interpreting it yourself. If you don't want to use a professional astrologer to do it for you, we can also do it ourselves, layer by layer, step by step. Okay, so this position of Mercury is quite important, because it will very much symbolize how we express ourselves, how we gain knowledge, how we make connections to people, and so on. So I will start from the first sign, which obviously is Aries. Let's have a look what Mercury in Aries will give you. What is also interesting, and I will make this reference to this first sign, I don't think I'll go through all of them, is that we can have different different manifestations of Mercury in Aries, depending where your sun is as well. Okay, so that's quite interesting, because you may have Mercury in Aries, but for example your sun may be in Pisces, Taurus or Aries. So I will read this example, give you this example to show you how placement of Mercury may color your expression of the sun, of the natal sun as well. But then you can obviously make further interpretations as we go along. Okay. So Aries, first of all, Aries as such, symbolism of Aries is that of a fighting spirit, independent, not very much like thinking before acting. It's about spontaneity, being very self-motivated, willful, forceful, selfish sometimes, very enthusiastic, and there is strong initiative, strong energy, drive to take action. Courageous, daring, pioneering, independent, all these beautiful, courageous energies. When we have Mercury in Aries, this gives certain decisiveness and quick thinking. Imagine jumping into action, and this will be very much, through expression, through talking, through communication. So it's about like jumping in, not thinking very much before acting, but it gives certain decisiveness and quick thinking, ability to assess problems in a very straightforward, direct way. If Mercury is a negative aspect to Mars, there may be some impulsive thinking and hasty actions, especially when in Aries. However, usually the natural decisiveness works very well, with the individual making the right choices and taking positive, assertive, courageous action. There is a love of argument and debate. Yes, okay, with a tendency towards stimulating and provocative remarks. There's definitely this courage. I'm not afraid to say what I think. I just like jump in spontaneously. I have the courage to say what I think, and I'm very decisive. I take decisive action. I express myself very directly. Okay, there's no nuances, no misunderstandings. There's just direct communication, direct self-expression. Okay. Generally, fools are not suffered gladly. The individual comes straight to the point. Their outlook is both positive and optimistic. There's enthusiasm in communication style. The overall grasp is excellent, but help is advisable when making plans. For these people are bored by detail and prefer the broad sweep of a project. It can be difficult to concentrate for a long time, so study may be erratic. Here is someone who will stay up all night before an exam. And often this is no bad thing, since they are more concerned with the here and now than with the facts they tried months before to memorize. So it's like last minute action, but it's very much spontaneous, decisive, direct, straight to the point communication style. So also, what else I can add? Mercury in Aries. Positive, progressive placement. It will help the individual considerably at times of decision making. It will color their mental attitude, encouraging a forthright, uncomplicated approach to all problems. Other people may even get the impression that there are no problems to be solved because these people are so much direct, straightforward, straight to the point, decisive. Okay, so it may seem like they don't really take too much time to make the decision. They don't have problems because they solve them so quickly. They just jump in and take action. But as mentioned before, it may be difficult for them to analyze all the little details. There's no great attention to detail there. Okay, it's just focusing on the big aspect, the wider aspect of the problem. So someone who may have provocative and lively manner in argument. Also, it's somebody that gets there's quick anger. They may get easily and quickly annoyed. Quick decisions are usually right. The tendency to impulsiveness and lack of patience with other, slower thinking people may be observed here. So just to give you an example with Aries, I think only with Aries, I will not do it with other signs, as I said, because I would be here for hours and hours and hours. I will give you an example how energy of Mercury will be manifested when your sun sign is in Pisces, in Aries, and in Taurus. Because as mentioned before, Mercury can only be 28 degrees maximum away from the sun, and each sign has 30 degrees. So technically it can, when you have Mercury in Aries, your sun can fall only in Pisces, Aries, or Taurus. So the sign before Aries and the sign after Aries. Okay, so when your sun sign falls in Pisces and your Mercury in Aries, this adds necessary decisiveness and a more positive outlook, and to a certain extent more self-confidence, more self-assurance to the Pisces sun. The imagination will be ignited, and as a result, creative potential will be expressed positively, when in other cases it can lie dormant due to lack of self-confidence. The high emotional level of Pisces will be expressed, of course, because the sun is in Pisces, and the ability to communicate feelings will be enhanced because of the beautiful Pisces energy. Although, if Mercury is negatively aspected by the Moon or Uranus, there may be an above average amount of tension, and excitable positive moods can alternate with periods of uncertainty. Piscean strength of will is increased. Not going into any aspects because we are not obviously focusing on aspects here, but the Pisces sun, imaginative, delicate, kind of very much, sometimes detached from reality, forgetting about boundaries sometimes, but also very much like giving and sacrificing for others, will be very much enhanced with the expression of Mercury in Aries, because Mercury in Aries will add this fire, decisiveness, courage, quick thinking. It will not so much dilute the communication style with Piscean energy. Okay, so when it's in Aries, it gives some kind of counterbalance to the Pisces energy. However, if you are born with the Sun in Pisces and Mercury in Pisces, it gives a very different vibe, because this is when it brings much more imaginative, artistic, spiritual color. So when we have, however, have Mercury in Aries and Sun in Aries, fire and fire, okay? This is an explosive combination. Much more enthusiasm, daring, courageous energy, jumping in, taking action, talking about it very quickly. I just like jump in, do what I want to do, and then jump out. So it's very much like fast moving energy. So when you have Sun in Aries and Mercury in Aries, so here the Aryan need for action and to be out in front is spiced with extremely quick thinking processes. There is a general hastiness with patience almost non-existent. Too much Aries, okay? It's like spontaneous, enthusiastic, not thinking about it, action, no patience, no patience. There is a general hastiness, yes. Directness of approach, decisiveness, and positive, uncomplicated thinking are splendidly in tune with Aryan characteristics. And if they can be tempered, the individual will certainly make his or her work mark on the world. Impulsive, hasty actions with unnecessary risk-taking and selfishness due to a lack of thought must be controlled. Let's, however, bear in mind that all these things I'm talking about, this is only a little piece of your chart. So still, even if you have, Sun and Mercury in Aries, you also obviously have aspects to the Mercury. So for example, if Mercury is aspected by Saturn or by Pluto, or by other planets, it will give another, it will shape your thought process differently, okay? So you may have Sun and Mercury in Aries that I have just described, but for example, your Mercury may be, let's say, trined by Saturn or even opposed by Saturn, which will give a vibe of discipline and controlled energies much more, okay? So, but for example, if it is, let's say, conjunct Uranus, it will add the hastiness and craziness of expression even more. So these people will talk very fast, for example, and they will definitely not think before opening their mouth. So there are so many different layers, so many different ways of interpreting these things, okay? Also, moving on to the third combination of Mercury in Aries, which obviously means that you could have Sun in Taurus and Mercury could be in the preceding sign and Mercury can be in preceding sign of Aries. So when your Sun is in Taurus and Mercury is in Aries, that's what we can expect. Speed and vivacity are added to the stable Taurian type, making them less cautious but more assertively decisive. However, the individual will also be less patient and may even show some irritation when others do not greet their ideas or suggestions in the right way. Problems and projects are approached with a realistic and enthusiastic attitude, and the Taurian need for careful planning will be enhanced by the ability to grasp a situation quickly and concisely. A spirit of enterprise blends with the Taurian business ability. So again, this is a bit more of a like two ends of a scale. We have Taurian peaceful, steady, patient approach, and we have the Aries, directness, decisiveness, and fiery element. So these actually will complement each other very well. But it was just an example of how you can combine the sun sign energy with Mercury energy. I will probably just like sail through the rest of the interpretations. I'm sorry, all the other signs. I focus on Aries much more just because it's the first sign. Aries wants to be first. They want to jump in, take action, be first, be visible. There's enthusiasm, there's this like assertiveness within them. And for this reason also, they are the first sign of the zodiac. So I will move on to different signs now, different energies. Next one obviously is Taurus. Second sign of the zodiac is Taurus. So Taurus sort of archetypal energy will be patience, practicality, being persistent, grounded, perseverant, very sensual, sometimes stubborn, unimaginative, and possessive as well. We have very like conservative, loyal, kind of seeking pleasure energy, focus on the body and material values as well. So when Mercury is in Taurus, we can imagine, when we combine these two energies, these two symbolisms, we can imagine somebody that speaks very slowly, that is very much like, takes time to gather their thoughts. They don't jump in without thinking. They think a lot before they say anything. Somebody with Mercury in Taurus, or even Venus in Taurus, I know that these people like to learn through visuals. They learn through colors and images, and they may take longer to learn, but the knowledge is, when it's retained, is retained for life. So these are slow moving mental processes, but once it's there, it never disappears, okay? But there's definitely certain slowness and patience in communication and in learning processes, mental processes. So Mercury in Taurus, as I said, thinking is steady. But the person may be rather slow to learn. Parents of children with this placing must not worry if they think that the child is not responding to teaching, for if gradual progress is maintained, what is learned will be remembered for life and create good foundation for the future. These people have great memory, they don't forget. Stubbornness is almost inevitable and flexibility must be cultivated. Otherwise, opinions can become so entrenched that the individual may become proud of them, perhaps saying, once my mind's made up, that's it. And there is certain stubbornness and stability of their opinions and thoughts, okay? Conversely, we find others who pretend to be very fixed in their opinions and go all out to shock people in the way they express them. However, caution and much practical common sense are always present, sometimes coupled with a conservative and very conventional outlook. These people are very traditional. Taurus is very traditional, conventional, stubborn, very much like down to earth, practical. Okay, very difficult to change your mind when you have Mercury in Taurus. The ability to plan constructively is amazing, is very considerable here, with a methodical and disciplined approach to problems and to work. There may be some obsessional tendencies because there is this obsessive streak, obsessive streak in Taurus. Perhaps an inclination to get in a rut because it offers security. The person will usually express themselves with a considerable amount of charm. Of course, let's not forget, Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's a very sensual, beautiful, aesthetic sign as well. So the way that Mercury will express itself in Taurus is, through charm, through beauty, aesthetics, but also certain slowness and stubbornness. Okay, so now let's move on to Mercury in Gemini. Gemini is a very different energy, as we know. Gemini is everything to do with like sociable, communicative, diverse, kind of rational, intellectual, unpredictable, quick-witted, adaptable, versatile energy. Let's remember that Mercury is at home in Gemini. Okay, Mercury rules Gemini, just like it rules Virgo. So Mercury will feel very well in Gemini. That's when it's expressed and the strongest, I would say. So Mercury in Gemini, here the influence is stronger because Mercury rules this sign, as I said. Let me just have a look how to word it nicely. Mercury in Gemini. So when it's placed in a sign, its influence is increased considerably. Many people with this placing will be described by their friends as mercurial. Meaning fast moving, fast speaking, having a lot of different ideas, connecting with many different people. There is this superficial vibe, but also amazing quality to be flexible and to be able to connect with many different people on many different levels. There may be superficial and quick, but they have this mercurial ability of, as I said, making connections with anyone they want. Okay, so it's like ability to get through, express themselves, show interest, and very swiftly change subjects. So they will think very quickly and have a certain brightness which will help them through tricky situations. I know a few people with Mercury in Gemini. They literally can talk themselves out of any problems. For example, person with Mercury in Taurus will probably prefer to type a message, or will take a lot of time to to express their opinion, for example, to communicate or to respond to your message, while people in with Mercury in Gemini, they will pick up the phone, they'll call you and they'll talk to you for half an hour to soften you up or make you change your mind or make them like you. So it's very much it brings ability to literally talk yourself out of problems and talk others into what you want them to do or to believe. There's an amazing quality. Well, Mercury is at home here, isn't it? So yes, they will change their attitudes and opinions at a moment's notice and will be able to cope with a great variety of problems at the same time. They will also be extremely talkative. And the communicative side of Mercury will be noticeably present. Here too are people who love to move around, movement, going from one place to another, spending an above average amount of time traveling, even if it's just getting from one place to another. They will also have considerable versatility, but may tend to be superficial. These qualities will be very powerfully stressed if Gemini is the sun sign, and the quick change tendency of Mercury will be more noticeable in those who have a Cancer sun sign. So very much it depends again where your sun falls. Mercury will, if your Mercury is in Gemini, your sun can only be in Gemini, in the preceding sign of Taurus, or in the following sign of Cancer. Okay, so these are combinations that you can have a look at, and I'm sure there's obviously plenty of knowledge on internet nowadays, but I would highly recommend this book. It is actually great, like a compendium of knowledge on astrology if you want to start from something but then also deepen your knowledge over the years. It's Julia and Derek Parker's Astrology. Okay, it's a great book that I got from my sister ages ago. Now let's move on to Mercury in the next sign, which is Cancer. So the Cancerian, archetype of Cancer will be this of emotional, empathetic, caring, very nurturing, emotional, as I said, tenacious, creating and consolidating emotional bonds with people, seeking inner emotional security. It's very receptive, very sensitive, supportive, imaginative, sometimes can be moody and neurotic. So when we throw Mercury into the sign of Cancer, we have great deal to enhance the imagination and give the individual a superb memory. Cancer is actually known of its memory, so with Mercury in Cancer you will definitely have this ability to remember what happened like 50 years ago on Thursday at 2 p.m. This is Cancer, okay? This is Mercury in Cancer. While there is a tendency for those with this placing to be somewhat sentimental and to look back to the old good days with nostalgia, if the potential of the placing is allowed to develop fully, the individual can get a great deal from this planet. For example, if the imagination is allowed positive expression, it can be channeled into imaginative writing. Often superb children's stories, family sagas, or historical fiction will be the result, because Cancer is very much about tradition, family roots. Yes, anything to do with like family saga, history, tradition, is very much Cancerian. So Mercury will express itself through these, through these expressions, through these kind of energies. But if the imagination remains undeveloped, it will run wild, and there will be a tendency to let small problems and worries get totally out of proportion. Displacing Mercury in Cancer can make the individual prone to worry, and in some respects, the logic and matter-of-fact elements of Mercury are somewhat diminished when the planet is in Cancer. Altogether, Mercury in Cancer will make you express your ideas, your opinions through emotions as well, but through very caring and nurturing emotions. It's a beautiful placement, but I think it's a very good point, because Cancer is so much like family roots and tradition and history oriented sign. When you have Mercury there, I mean Cancer is very much a sign of history, tradition, family, roots, etc. When Mercury is placed there, it will allow you to express yourself and pay bigger attention to these areas of your life, like tradition, history, where you come from. These are people who may be more patriotic, for example, in their expression or in what their mind is interested in. Okay, let's move on to Leo, the fifth sign of the zodiac. Leo as such is obviously a very grand, loyal, playful, proud, creative, generous, confident sign. So when we have Mercury in Leo, these people communicate with courage, definitely, and confidence and self-assertiveness. Okay, so those with this placing have excellent planning ability. They will work in an orderly, sensible way, but will tend to be dogmatic and sometimes rather stubborn as well. Well, Leo is a fixed sign. Hence stubbornness. Okay, they may at times express themselves in a somewhat pompous and old-fashioned way. Leo does everything with splendor and flair and pride. So somebody with Mercury in Leo will definitely express themselves with some kind of like a grand, gestures. Okay, you will notice them definitely when they speak, when they express their opinions. You will notice a Leo in Mercury in Leo, definitely. So they sometimes may be pompous and old-fashioned, but will be determined and practical, at the same time having masses of enthusiasm and mental energy to pour into whatever fascinates them most. They often have good powers of concentration and will be thorough in study. Sometimes the creative urge of Leo makes its presence felt, and if this emerges, the individual should develop it to the full. The Leo sense of drama is also not far away, and may be expressed in speech, argument, or discussion. Those with this placing will make a dramatic impact when lecturing or speaking in public. Yes, Leos love stage, Leos love drama, and they love this kind of like pompous energy. Okay, they're definitely noticeable, but very much like stage, theater. This is Leo. And Mercury is expression, right? So acting, communication through art, through creativity, very present here. When Leo is the sun sign, the thinking processes will be expansive. Big ideas will come thick and fast, and there may be a tendency to brag to others who achieve less. Yeah, that's all Leo, isn't it? However, they must make an effort to develop flexibility and give consideration to other people's opinions. Leo has a tendency to very much like focus on what they want, what they think. This is the only right way, because they truly believe it. Okay, it's not out of spite, because they truly believe that this is the only right way. So flexibility with this fixed sign is very much welcome here. Other fixed signs, just to remind you, are the opposing Aquarius, but also the squaring Scorpio and Taurus. Okay, these are 4 fixed signs. So they tend to be more like less flexible, more stubborn, and it's difficult for these signs to change opinions, change ideas. Okay, there's certain stubbornness and even like obsessive tendency. Right, we move on to Virgo now. So with Virgo, Mercury feels great in Virgo because Mercury rules Virgo just like it rules Gemini, so it will feel really well in Virgo. It will feel great there. Virgo brings very strong attention to detail, wanting to serve others, wanting to be helpful, wanting to be useful, is practical, efficient, methodical, perfectionist, and fussy sometimes, very much like attentive to detail. So with Mercury in Virgo, you can imagine, you know, people with Mercury in Virgo are absolutely the best kind of people to do Excel, to do Excel spreadsheets. Okay, I hate this kind of things, but Virgo Mercury will love spreadsheets. They will put everything in order. They will categorize everything, and they will make sure that others follow these rules and these, like, you know, pinpointed kind of you know, layers of their reality. It's an amazing quality, definitely amazing quality. So Mercury in Virgo actually is in a lively mood, because it's the second sign it rules, as I said. It is at its most practical and constructive, and those with this placing are capable of a great deal of demanding intellectual work. Their approach is careful and thorough, but they may not always have the confidence to make the most of their abilities because of a tendency to think themselves less competent than they really are. There is certain shyness and denying oneself assertiveness with Virgo, so yes, it very much makes sense. There is, however, an abundance of nervous energy and a keenness to be fully occupied all the time. This is so true. People with Virgo Mercury will, it's like, constantly be on a mental go. They constantly have to think about something, plan something. There's this intellectual, versatile vibe around them all the time. Generally, the imaginative forces are not much increased by Mercury in Virgo because it's so practical, methodical, and down to earth. So it's very opposing the Pisces vibe, okay? The imaginative, detached from reality Pisces vibe is very different. It's very down to earth, practical. Mercury in Virgo, yes, but common sense and practical ability, and the result is someone who likes to know precisely what they have to do, and they have to do it, and how to do it. So this is Mercury in Virgo, just like planning ahead and just like doing it. The critical acumen is heightened enormously. Here too is someone who is highly communicative and enjoys conversation with all sorts of people because of a very inquiring and active mind. It's actually really nice placement, you know. If you want to have all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted, and you want to have everything in an orderly manner, you know, Virgo, ask Mercury in Virgo person. If you want to have an assistant who will focus on all these details, Mercury in Virgo is the perfect person for you. Now let's move on to the seventh sign of the zodiac, which is Libra. So Libra is obviously, you know, it's like, it brings a vibe of beauty, aesthetics, indecisiveness. It's very much like balanced, fair. It brings justice, harmony. It's loving, sociable, peace-loving, aesthetics, cooperative, gracious, sometimes over-compromising and sometimes indecisive. So Mercury in Libra will very much enhance sympathy and balance and beauty, but it will definitely bring indecisiveness. So yes, Mercury in Libra brings kindness and consideration, indecisiveness as well, as I said, and a tendency to want to achieve a great deal with the minimum of mental effort. I am not saying here that Libra is lazy, okay? I didn't say it. But Mercury in Libra can, you know, choose easy way out. They may not Mercury in Libra will not necessarily, you know, like focus really hard on what needs to be learned, for example, before an exam, like Mercury in Virgo or Capricorn would, but it will just like try to make their way out in this aesthetic, diplomatic, kind of charming way, okay? And they want to put minimum amount of work to get the best results. This is Mercury in Libra. There may be little inclination to take on projects which involve deep concentration, and the individual may well express themselves in a rather slow, languid way, taking an above average amount of time to answer questions, and doing as much as possible to keep away from controversial subjects or anything which might disturb the cherished, pleasant atmosphere and inner balance. Those with this placing may have a rather romantic outlook on life and a tendency to be overly optimistic. It's a beautiful placement, but not very much practical, not very much down to earth. But when we move to Mercury in Scorpio, this is a very different vibe. Scorpio obviously is a very determined, kind of intuitive, insightful, loyal, very much like focused sign. Very passionate, private, sensitive, powerful, willful, intense, secretive, uncompromising, radical. There is certain depth here. So Scorpio energy is very much about focusing. Mercury in Scorpio is focusing on certain area of knowledge that sparks your interest, and then giving it all to deepen this area of knowledge. This is strong intuition, strong insightful quality, secretive, yes, but very strong intensity. So when somebody has Mercury in Scorpio and they want to deepen certain area of knowledge, they will. Nothing will stop them. Okay, it's like they go really deep. They just they are relentless. They will find out what they need to find out. A lot of detectives have quite strong Scorpio placements. So Mercury in Scorpio brings intensity and intuition of Scorpio combined with the logic, the rational approach, and the inquisitiveness of Mercury. A formidable combination, and one which will give the individual a terrific sense of purpose and some very strong investigatory qualities. There will be a deep desire to find out facts and to know the precise reason for things. A need to solve problems and to get down to the most minute detail of every aspect of life will be in evidence. So there is real potential here for a career as a researcher, analyst, or perhaps psychiatrist. It may be that the individual will be a strong silent type, saying little but missing not a thing. The powers of observation are extremely high with this placing. This is like really strong perception, very strong intuition, ability to see through people as well, but also to express yourself straight to the point. These are not people that take BS or just are very diplomatic or charming, but they get straight to the point with their communication. So yes, very interesting, very sharp perception placement here. And as I said, quite popular among researchers, detectives, people that work with criminology, police forces, etc. Then we move on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius is another sign, the 9th sign of the zodiac. So Sagittarian energies will be, again, quite different from Scorpio, obviously. Zodiac goes very much black and white, up and down, on and off. It's very different, jumps from one extreme to another in certain ways. Okay, so when we move on to Sagittarius, here we have love of travel, adventure, enthusiasm. There's a great sense of humor, a very philosophical approach, deep thoughts, but on a more scattered way, if it makes sense. So these people don't really have great attention to detail. They don't have this very inquisitive quality. They just want to have fun, but also they're very open-minded, tolerant. They have this philosophical, religious outlook in a certain way. Belief system is very important for them, to them. So Sagittarius will be maybe quite superficial, superficial in the sense of I don't deal with details. Details bore me. Okay, we have optimistic, enthusiastic, adventurous, freedom-loving, honest, outgoing, philosophical approach to the world. So with Mercury in Sagittarius, we have an individual who needs to be constantly studying something or compelling interest. But it is important that initial enthusiasm is actually maintained. That's what I'm talking about. Sagittarius, Jupiter is a higher expression of Mercury. So just like Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and this is very much about elementary, primary school teaching, learning, this kind of education. With Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, we have a higher level of education and mental qualities. Mercury in Sagittarius will be very much focused on gaining knowledge, absolutely. Anything to do with like higher education as well. But there is, what is missing is this attention to detail and methodical approach. So that's why, it's important that the initial enthusiasm when Mercury in Sagittarius jumps into a certain area of knowledge is actually maintained. It is important that the restlessness does not come between the constant and positive direction of some really excellent intellectual potential. There will be versatility and perhaps a natural flair for languages, very much so. Sagittarius is like cross-border international energy, foreign energy, anything that is foreign to us. Okay, so Mercury in the Mercury in the ninth house, which is Sagittarius, definitely brings strong ability to learn foreign languages. Okay. Travel will be very important for this person, and any kind of stuffy attitude in other people will no way be tolerated. There is great flexibility and openness, open-mindedness. There is considerable breadth of vision and the ability to grasp instantly even the most complicated ideas. It may be necessary for these people consciously to develop persistence of effort, since there may be a tendency to turn to new, attractive and less complicated or boring projects when difficulties arise. Yes, that's Sagittarius. When we move on to sign number 10, which is Capricorn, here we have again very different quality. So Capricorn, as we know, is much more like independent, self-sufficient, kind of slow, conservative, reserved, very traditional, but also extremely perseverant. Okay, Capricorn quality is a quiet energy that gets to the top. Okay, it doesn't give up. Organized, patient, serious, conservative, ambitious, very ambitious, strategic. Maybe quite guarded, calculating and ruthless as well, but as we know, each sign has its negative and positive expressions, or rather positive and negative expressions. So with Mercury in Capricorn, we have a very cool, steady, clear mind, and will give the ability to calculate all situations in a very clever and careful way. It's a beautiful placement if you want to achieve something. If you have, a strong ambition and ability to achieve, Mercury in Capricorn is fantastic. There could be a flair for figures. Maths will be probably enjoyed. Here is the sort of mind that thrives on problems and enjoys working out plans in a very matter-of-fact, grounded way, both for the long term and the short term. There will be efficiency and a practical outlook, with perhaps a tendency to take oneself rather too seriously. Capricorn is a very ambitious but very serious and stable and steady and sometimes boring sign. We all need Capricorn in our life as well. So when you have Mercury in Capricorn, there will be efficiency and practical outlook, as I said, sometimes with a tendency to take yourself too seriously. The whole approach to life is usually quite cautious and traditional. Much thought will be given to progress and the attainment of objectives. And while there are many successful people with Mercury in Capricorn, there is a tendency to underestimate what has been achieved. It's so true. Capricorn will steadily climb up the mountain and achieve, one milestone after another. And once they are at the top, rather than just like really appreciating themselves and enjoying the success, they will maybe like criticize or undermine their achievements, and they will realize that there is much more to be achieved. It's a very ambitious sign. So yes, it's a great placement, for anything to do with knowledge, ambition and achievement in life. When we move on to the sign number 11, which is Aquarius, Aquarian energy is very independent again, rational. Mercury will feel really well here, I think. Independent, rational, detached, unconventional, idealistic, sociable, friendly, original, innovative. Quite an interesting energy of Mercury, planet of communication and making connections and mental energy placed in Aquarius, because we have here, with this placing, we have individual with originality and a quick mind. It's an air sign, okay, air sign, just like we have Aquarius, Gemini and Libra being air signs. So Mercury in this last earth sign gives this streak of originality and quick mind. There is an element of stubbornness. Let's not forget that Aquarius is a fixed sign, so there is this like obsessive tendency or stubbornness here as well, inability to change your mind sometimes. Okay, there is too a hint of eccentricity accompanied by a touch of brilliance and the potential for taking a different line of approach when dealing with difficult problems. Aquarius is a very original sign, absolutely. It's like it has this eccentricity, originality, doing things differently, thinking out of the box and being very progressive. So Mercury in Aquarius will give very progressive approach to anything to do with mental energy, communication and self-expression, just as well as learning, studying. Mercury in Aquarius will only really come into its own if the individual consciously develops persistence of effort to get the most out of the lively individual qualities that are an inherent part of their mental processes. There will be no lack of really bright ideas, whether the individual is creative or scientific. There will be eccentric, out-of-the-box ideas. There will be delightful ability to communicate in a friendly way with all kinds of people. Let's not forget that Aquarius is a very friendly, very sociable, however detached sign, okay? So they are great, kind of like intense, original qualities, independence in outlook, but also great skill to make connections, to communicate in a friendly and sociable manner. Open-mindedness is very present here. And here we move on to the last sign, which is Pisces, the 12th sign of zodiac. So Pisces, you know, they are very sensitive, obviously the most sensitive, imaginative, dreamy, selfless, compassionate, receptive, very sentimental signs, psychic sometimes. So when we place Mercury in Pisces, what can we expect? When we place Mercury in Pisces, there is this very strong emphasis on intuition and feelings. So with Mercury in Pisces, it is a little bit of a dizzy mood, artistic, spiritual, imaginative. The individual will be kind and considerate and will have a willing attitude, but will often not be terribly practical when it comes to planning or the day-to-day organization of the life. Of course, let's leave it to, you know, Mercury in Virgo, for example, right? So they will have a pleasant, gentle quality and a high level of emotion, but they may be forgetful. It's like, you know, daydreaming qualities. This is definitely Mercury in Pisces. Daydreaming, not being very focused, very much like, you know, imagination playing an important part in their life. The tendency may lead the individual into all sorts of complicated situations. They may resort to mild deceitfulness or as a cover-up, which is true. I think there is a tendency with Mercury in Pisces to alter reality a little bit or not be very much like straight to the point, because they simply don't want to hurt others. They want to bring only like beauty and peace and harmony into the world, and compassion and sensitivity. So they may sometimes avoid truth just to spare others suffering, okay? But they are very developed in a spiritual sense, so there is very strong intuition and ability to translate their thoughts and opinions through maybe like artistic quality or spiritual quality, anything to do with dreams, visions, daydreaming, things like that. So this is Mercury in Pisces, but I am sure you can find much more information through different sources, not only on internet but also in books. I highly recommend the website astro.com, when you can not only create your own, generate your own astrological birth chart, natal chart, but you can find a lot of descriptions and interpretations of placements of the planets in your chart. Just, you know, just like the kind of like everyday world events, what is going on in our lives and so on, transits. So that's everything. If you would like to hear about anything else, please message me. All the contact details are below the video. I didn't cover Mercury in retrograde. I'll just quickly throw in that when Mercury goes in retrograde motion, which is in relation to the Earth, it appears as if it's going back. Technically, it is obviously not. This is the time in the year, 3 times a year, when we have for about a period of 3 weeks an opportunity to, like, you know, go back and rethink our choices and opinions and ideas before Mercury goes direct again, and we can implement these changed, adjusted and amended ideas and opinions into our lives. So this happens 3 times a year, but I always make a short video about each Mercury retrograde and what we can expect. It very much depends when it retrogrades in your chart, because Mercury retrograde, regardless of the sign it retrogrades in, if it retrogrades in your first house, it will be very much about rethinking how you look like, how you come across to other people, or what health choices you make for yourself. But when it retrogrades the 4th house, for example, in your 4th house, it will bring rethinking and revising anything to do with your home, where you live, your family, parenthood, choices of your like home, house, tradition, etc. So it's a bit more multi-layered, but I'll try to stop here. And please give me ideas what you would like to listen to in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you all the best. See you next time.